Oh, you love to see it. I gotta say, there is an emotional reaction I have when I see someone take the fake news to task. You see, I'm sure most of you are familiar with how the fake news operates. You've seen the smears, you've seen the lies, and it's probably frustrating every day because they get away with it. Dan Bongino files $15 million defamation suit against the Daily Beast for reckless disregard for the truth. Bravo, my good sir. Bravo. Thank you. Okay? Look, I've had fake news written about me relentlessly, and it's expensive and difficult to sue, and you'll probably lose. I think Mr. Bongino here has a good chance of winning. And I'll tell you something else. One of the reasons I went off on my own and didn't want to be involved in these companies anymore is because I watched them lie all day. How can you be a journalist if you don't tell the truth? It's mind-blowing. We don't have journalism, right? And I think it's because for a lot of these media companies, particularly the ones I worked at, they felt like their audience couldn't handle the truth. They really did. They told me to side with the audience, they said. And my argument is, you know what? Sometimes the truth hurts. Sometimes you can't tell. Look, you go to people and say, we're going to give you universal health care, free America. No, it's just not a thing you can do. You got to be honest about it. But see, here's the problem. A lot of these people on the left who consume these leftist tabloids, well, they don't want to hear the truth. They don't want to hear economists say, you know, look, one of the big problems with universal health care is if we did it overnight or even in a short few years, we'd get rid of millions of jobs. That would, harm us economically to an absurd degree. Could you imagine adding 2 million unemployed? It's a dangerous number. And so that's a dangerous issue. Now, the other big problem is that we don't have enough hospitals or doctors as it is. So it's just not a reality. You got to tell the truth, right? Well, they lied about Mr. Bongino, and for no reason. I literally don't know why they lied about him. They wanted to make a negative story about an NRA personality, and they lied, and they knew it was a lie. And it seems that's what's being presented here. It seems like, according to the statements from Bongino, this left-wing publication, the Daily Beast, overtly lied and admitted it. And that's how you know I think he has a good case based on these facts, but we'll see what happens. Let me read you the story. Fox News reports, Secret Service agent turned conservative pundit Dan Bongino filed a $15 million defamation lawsuit against the Daily Beast on Tuesday for acting with, quote, actual malice and reckless disregard for the truth by reporting he was dropped by NRA TV. Now, let me try and define some things for you. I'm not a lawyer, but actual malice and disregard for the truth basically means, it doesn't mean they were trying to hurt him. It means they knew for a fact what they said was not true and published it anyway. Now, Bongino, to his credit, just asked for a correction. What a stand-up guy. He says, hey, you were wrong. Why don't you fix it? And they said, no. Check it out. Quote, I have been in an ongoing battle for a long time now with fake news media people that just report blatantly false things about me. It gets old, folks, really old. It's been personally exhausting, Bongino said on his podcast. It's not a crybaby snowflake thing. It's my fight. We all have our own fights. But the Daily Beast a while back wrote a story about me. They wrote a story about me that was patently false. Bongino is a Fox News contributor, explained that a December 2018 report by the Daily Beast reporter Lachlan Markay said he was dropped by NRA TV, which is a euphemism for being fired. But the conservative pundit says the story was false. Let me stop right here. Dropped. What does it really mean? It means they opted, the vaguest interpretation, NRA TV dropped Dan Bongino, meaning they opted not to have him remain. So maybe they didn't fire him, but maybe they said they dropped his show, right? Often what these journalists will do is they'll use assumptive language to get away with lying. In the instance of me, they said that I pushed the Seth Rich conspiracy theory. Why? Because I talked about it one time. How about that? Yep. Fox Business, I think it was Fox Business, Fox outlet, reported that Seth Rich had contacts with WikiLeaks. I talked about it. I said I'm not entirely convinced, but we'll see what happens. It's a complicated story. I basically said I think there's like a 65% chance this is true based on the fact that Fox News was saying he had contact with WikiLeaks. We'll see what happens. And because I talked about it, Fox News ultimately later retracted the story. They claimed I pushed it. Saying I don't think it's completely true, the reporting from Fox News, which turned out to be false, is not pushing anything. Oh, but you could argue it is. That's the game they play. It's how they lie. Because the average person hears that And they think pushed as in you're ranting like Alex Jones. So was Dan Bongino dropped by NRA TV? No. In fact, he says the reporter even reached out to him and said, I heard you aren't re-signing, or something to that effect. Basically that Dan Bongino was choosing to move on, but then he tried to make it seem like the NRA cut him off. Why? You know what? Some people just want to lie, I guess. Look at this. He says, the author of the story texted me that he had heard from sources the opposite. The opposite was the true story, that I did not renew my contract. I was offered to stay. I was not dropped. I did not return by choice. I left. That story was false. They did the same thing to me with Fusion. When I worked for Fusion, I tried leaving. I asked them to sever my contract, and they said no. Finally, when my contract was up, I waved goodbye, and then a bunch of these people started saying Tim was let go. They wouldn't renew his contract. What? No. I went a year early and said, it's time for me to leave this place because I see what y'all are doing. We had another meeting several months later, and I said, it's time for me to leave this place because y'all don't know. I see what you're doing, right? You have no idea what's going on. And they said, well, we'll talk about it. And then it was end of August, my contract was up and I left. And sure enough, people started writing, Tim was fired, Tim was let go. It's you know what, man? They want to do this because they don't want to accept that. I can't tell you in the case of Dan Bongino. I'll tell you in the case of me. They don't want to accept that I, on principle, refused to stay there. And I was trying to get out of my contract. I gave them the opportunity multiple times. Asked them on Twitter to correct it. They refused. I gave them an opportunity via text recently to correct it. They refused. We are suing the Daily Beast for $15 million. The Daily Beast and Marquet did not respond to comment, request for comment. Marquet, I'm going to throw some shade and give him some credit for a second. There was a story that was published by the Washington Post about Kim.com that was fake. It was pertaining to the Seth Rich conspiracy theory, coincidentally. It was fake. It used euphemisms and qualifying words like may have, seems to be, and it was like made up. Well, Marquet tweeted it out like it was a fact. Kim.com hacked Seth Rich's Gmail account. And I told him, hey, that's not true, and he ignored it. But I'll give him this credit. Like a year later, I mentioned it again, and he apologized and deleted the tweet. Sure, the lie traveled around the world several times for a year, and then a year later you corrected it. I get it. He says, there is only one way to make these people pay, and that we have to use the legal system and do it the right way. Bongino said, this is really disgusting. They picked on the wrong guy. I'm not going to allow you to defame my character. Well, bravo, good sir. I wish you good luck in your fight. The complaint obtained by Fox News was filed in the Southern District of Florida. The complaint calls the Beast a digital assassin owned by and controlled by billionaire Clinton devotees Derry Biller and Diane von Furstenberg. The complaint says the Beast falsely stated that Bongino was fired by NRA TV, despite the news organization having proof of the contrary. The document includes a text from Marquet, which read, quote, heard you didn't renew with NRA TV. As evidenced by his texts, Marquet knew that NRA TV had not dropped plaintiff. Marquet knew the truth. The plaintiff had simply decided not to renew his contract. Rather than report the truth as told to Marquet by his source, Daily Beast deliberately misrepresented that NRA TV fired plaintiff and terminated his show. I don't know what you think dropped means. But dropped, even if he wasn't fired, means his show was ended by their choice, not his. No, he chose to move on. And look, he says it. Somebody's lying, right? And if it's true that text exists, I think that's proof that Daily Beast wrote fake news. And it's not the first time, okay? There are several writers at Daily Beast who make things up. I will say this as a statement of fact. Several writers at the Daily Beast have published falsehoods and in some instances completely made things up. And I tried to reach out for comment. I've called them. Hey, where did you get this information? This is made up. They just make it up. That's what they do. Daily Beast's false and defamatory statements were not published in good faith. The falsity was not due to an honest mistake of the facts, and there were no reasonable grounds for believing that the statements about plaintiff were true. According to the complaint, in spite of plaintiff's request for a retraction and apology, Daily Beast refuses to make and issue a full and fair correction, apology, or retraction. Daily Beast's false and defamatory statements cause plaintiff to suffer and incur both presumed and actual damages, including loss and injury to his business insult, pain, embarrassment, humiliation, mental suffering, harm to plaintiff's name and reputation, out-of-pocket loss, and other actual damages. Bongino declined to comment when reached by Fox News. So I'll tell you what, man, we can't sit around anymore. The media has become a corrupt and twisted machine. Are you watching the IG report stuff right now? You should be, okay? I'll tell you what's happening. We learned that not only was the FBI, I got to be careful on how I say this because they're playing, they're trying to be careful themselves. The FBI knew the Steele dossier was bunk. They pursued it anyway. The FBI used Christopher Steele as a source and then double dipped by using a news report citing Christopher Steele as a second source, even though it was the same source. Now, why do I bring this up? Because the media ran these stories uncritically. Oh, there are some names. I won't call you out. You know who you are. And I hope you lose your jobs. I met with one person who told me, I know for a fact Trump did it. Oh, of course he did. Of course Trump did it. And they still push fake news to this day. These are the lackey stooges of the intelligence services. These people who say, I want this narrative in the press, and they uncritically report it. These people are corrupt. The media is rotten to its core. Not everybody on YouTube is a good person. Not everybody in the press is a bad person. But I tell you this, these tabloid digital outlets, even the New York Times has been infected. They are being infected by a corruption that cares not for the truth and cares only for political and personal gain. They are rotting to their cores. Bongino needs to win this. I don't know if he will. Damages are important and hard to prove. So if he can prove they lied and he's got the evidence, he's got a good case. At least I'm not a lawyer, right? But damages are hard to prove. How did he lose money and what is he suing for? Why $15 million? Perhaps in the suit, they'll go through that, but I will state that's the hardest part. Now, he's filing in Florida. I don't know what that necessarily means. I believe the Daily Beast is based in New York. I believe it's in New York, so we'll see what happens. But Godspeed, good sir. I hope they at least issue a correction, and I wish you the best. Stick around. Next segment's coming up at 4 p.m. on youtube.com/Timcast, and I will see you all there.